All right, we're back on the record after a lunch break, and we are in the hearing of Willie Buford versus ABM, American Business Management. Is that correct? I think that's it. American Business Management.
It's Associates Building Maintenance.
Thank you. I lost my piece of paper where I had it listed. Okay, Associate Business Maintenance. Thank you. That's the parties, and we are in the second day of this hearing. It's July 25th, 2022. The complainant is now going to recall Mr. Buford in response to the adverse questions asked of Mr. Smith. And you could go ahead then. Mr. Buford has been out of the room since he testified, or out of the hearing, and because you didn't want him to hear. So, Mr. Buford, it looks like you're in your car. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Are you? Is this you're parked? You're safe. We're not going to have a problem. No accidents are going to occur.
No, Your Honor. I'm not driving.
Okay. All right then, Mr. Sultan, Mr. Buford, let's swear you in. You raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And you understand that you must tell the truth under threat of prosecution for perjury?
Yes.
Okay, then go ahead, Mr. Sultan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Buford. Prior to your termination from ABM, did Mr. Smith offer you a position at the Milwaukee Academy of Science?
No.
Prior to your termination from ABM, did Mr. Smith offer you any position anywhere?
No.
Prior to your termination at ABM, did you tell Mr. Smith that you were not interested in working anywhere else for ABM?
No.
Those are all the questions I have.
All right, anything on that, Mr. Baldwin? I can't hear you, so you must be muted.
As it relates to that redirect, no questions.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, then, Mr. Buford, you're free to go, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come back to talk to us, unless you're going to listen to the testimony from your car.
No, I'd ask that we sequester him again, just in case we have to recall him for one of the other witnesses.
All right. Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Buford. Then you can go, and please be safe. Thanks. All right, then we are, then you're resting, is that correct, Mr. Sultan?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, complainant is resting. And you tried to make a motion, which I've already denied, Mr. Baldwin, since it'll just end up causing us all more pain when the commission is not favorable to that motion. Whether or not I was going to respond, I'm just saying that that's her position, so I don't even bother entertaining those anymore. So let's just move on. And you wanted to call somebody quickly from Next Door Foundation, Ms. Porter, I believe you said?
That's correct, Carolyn Porter.
Okay. All right, let's. I don't see her. You're getting her to join?
Yes, Your Honor. Attorney Fleming is contacting her. We've been in contact with her to let her know that she would be testifying after lunch. So we got to get her into the waiting room.
Okay. So, Mr. Sultan, while we're here, again, none of those exhibits that you marked on the first day were entered into the evidence. And today you had Complainants Exhibit 6 and Complainants Exhibit 1 marked and entered. Complainants Exhibit 15, you did not. So just so we're clear, those are the only two exhibits that have been admitted in this matter, Complainants Exhibit 6 and Complainants Exhibit 1.
Understood, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so we're moving forward with that understanding. And then we're waiting for Miss Porter. That first name is Carolyn. Is that what you said?
Yes, Your Honor. Carolyn Porter.
Okay. Just putting her on my witness list for the testimony today. Do we know how long it's going to take to get Miss Porter?
Your Honor, she just emailed me back that she is logging in.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Miss Porter.
Hello.
Oh, hello, great. And Mr. Baldwin, for some reason, we're not seeing you. Can anybody else see him? Oh, there he is. Okay. All right, so Miss Porter, I appreciate you coming today to be a witness, and if you'll raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
It is, yes.
And you understand that you have to tell the truth under threat of prosecution for perjury?
I do.
Okay, and please state your name and spell it for the record, please.
Carolyn Porter, Carolyn, last name Porter, Porter.
Okay, so Mr. Baldwin is going to ask you some questions first, and then Mr. Sultan will ask you some questions. If you don't
Okay.
understand, please let us know. We are recording this, and so we need you to speak up, speak clearly. If you point and nod, while we do have a camera, if we get a transcript, which we're supposed to, that's not going to show on the transcript. So we need you to make sure all of your answers are verbal. Yes, no, I don't know, not and other things that might sound good when you're just talking casually, but not in a formal proceeding, okay?
Okay.
All right, go ahead then, please, Mr. Baldwin.
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. Porter. Thank you very much for your attendance today in today's hearing. I have a few questions for you. Can you state the nature of your employment, please?
Sure. I work as Director of Operations at the Next Door Foundation in Milwaukee.
Okay. And how long have you been so employed at the Next Door Foundation?
I started employment at Next Door in February of 2015. So
Okay.
7.5 years about.
And during that duration of 7.5 years, have you always been the Director of Operations?
I have not. No, I started as executive assistant in 2015. I was promoted to senior associate in the executive office. I believe it was 2017, and then director of operations in August of 2019.
And what, if any, were your roles involved with, let's strike that. Are you aware of one of the Nextdoor Foundation vendors by the name of ABM?
Yes.
Okay. And how are you so aware of that company?
ABM is our facility maintenance contractor. They provide facility maintenance services at Nextdoor, and as director of operations, I oversee facilities.
And were you involved with the initial negotiations of that contract?
No, I was not in this role at that time.
Okay. What was your role?
I was executive assistant to our president, Tracy Sparrow.
Is that the same as like a senior assistant?
Um, s- s- Kind of, I guess. Yes, similar. Yeah.
Were you involved in any of the meetings with Ms. Sparrow and ABM?
No, not for the original contract.
Okay. Were you aware of the terms and conditions of the contract?
No, not the original contract.
Okay. Were you part of the negotiations involved in the when the contract came to an end and trying to develop an extension as well as a follow-up contract?
Yes, I was involved in those negotiations.
And what was your role in that regard?
So as director of operations, I oversee basically that contract. So when it came up for renewal and Corey and I began to negotiate what that would look like for the upcoming period, it would be Corey and I who started those conversations and had those conversations, Corey Smith.
And did he raise any issues of particular concerns as it related to the economics of that contract?
He raised two concerns. It was, I believe, January of 2020, and that would have been at the end of the original 3-year term. Two things that were particular concern was snow plowing services. When the original contract was apparently signed, they did not disclose all of the different parking lot and areas that we have here at Nextdoor. So that was one concern. And the second concern was the amount of paper products, particularly we use as a birth through 5 school. We use a lot of paper towels and toilet paper and cleaning supplies. And those were a particular concern.
Did he express that there were of concern because of the cost of
Yep.
servicing the contract?
Yes, it was expensive. It was more than originally anticipated at the beginning of the contract term.
Was a 6-month extension or bridge contract negotiated in order to kind of shift through some of those issues and come up with a resolution?
Right. Exactly. So we decided to do a 6-month contract extension between January of 2020 and July of 2020. I had been newer to my role, and we wanted to take a moment to assess the costs of what snow plowing would cost Nextdoor if we took that out of the ABM contract, and also the cost of paper products and cleaning supplies. So we negotiated that extension.
And you
Where
were
Nextdoor would assume the cost of the paper products and cleaning supplies for 6 months.
And did you say the 6-month period was an opportunity for both parties to assess the cost of servicing the contract?
Right, right. Well, of those additional things. So if Nextdoor would take on the cost of paper products and cleaning supplies, that was an unbudgeted thing that Nextdoor would be taking on at that point. And we wanted to see if our budget could hold that. That would give us enough time to see how much it truly would cost us, and then we could add it to our next fiscal year budget that began in July of 2020.
Other than yourself testifying here, were there other staff members at Nextdoor Foundation that was also involved in the negotiations regarding this contract and the costs associated?
Sure, I discussed this with our Vice President of Finance, Bonnie Wesson, and our President, Tracy Sparrow.
I'm sorry, can you say the two names again?
Yep, Vice President of Finance, Bonnie Wesson,
Can you spell it, please?
Bonny, Wesson, Wesson.
Okay, and the other person?
Yep, our President, Tracy Sparrow, and I'll spell that Tracey, Sparrow, Sparrow.
Okay. And was Miss Sparrow the person that was in your position prior to you having it? I thought
No.
that was the person you said you replaced.
No. I was executive assistant to her. She was the president.
Okay.
I didn't replace her, no.
Okay,
She's
so
still,
then
she's still
I'm
employed
sure
there.
you got a promotion, I understood,
Yes,
from executive
into the role of director of operations. So it's a different role than I held previously.
Okay, so somebody else was in that position before. Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead then, please.
And how much opportunity have you been able to work with Mr. Smith?
I work with Corey Smith frequently over the course of days, weeks, months as we run the facilities here at Nextdoor.
I'm sorry, that didn't explain how often you're working with him.
It's hard to say. Phone calls and texts, maybe once or twice a week.
And the relationship between you and Mr. Smith is a good one? Good working relationship, that is?
Yes, it's a good working relationship, yes.
Do you know, based on your duties and responsibilities, how much you had to pay someone else to do the plowing and salting now for moving forward?
I'm going to say this off the top of my head because I can't remember the specifics, but we have two facilities here. One of them is roughly $70,000 per year, and the other one is roughly $60,000 per year.
And are those, am I
Annually.
correct in assuming then that those were costs that would have been embedded in the ABM contract that they would have to cover?
Yes.
And if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you also indicated that there was issue with a lot of paper products. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as it relates to that whole thing, maybe you can explain more clearly in terms of being the director of operations, the unique nature of Nextdoor Foundation as to why the paper products cost might be, let me use the word exaggerated or more than usual.
Mhm.
Can you?
Yeah.
Can you-
Absolutely. So we are a birth to 5 early childhood education center. So we have about 30 classrooms of children at each of our sites. Each classroom has a toilet for the children, and they're learning toilet training and how to do that independently. And so children tend to use a lot more toilet paper. Teachers have to monitor it. There's a lot of hand washing happening both in the bathroom and in the classroom before meals. when coming in and out of the playground. So our children are using lots of paper products every day. Hopefully that explains it.
And this was a cost factor that was related to the contract between ABM and Nextdoor Foundation, is correct?
Yes, the original 2017 contract had ABM paying for all of those items.
Okay. And do you know, only if you know, I tend to be a numbers guy, but maybe not for your role there, but do you know what the cost associated with the paper products there is on an annual basis now that you guys taken it over?
I haven't crunched those numbers. I would say maybe about $1,000 per month at each location.
So if I'm doing the math correct, that would be somewhere around $72,000 for the whole 3-year contract, approximately. $1,000
That,
per month, 2 locations,
right,
$24,000
for 3 years,
times
yes.
3. I'm sorry?
I would agree with that. Yes, it was a 3-year contract.
Have you ever had any involvement or any work, have ever worked with Mr. Willie Buford?
Yes, when Will was employed at ABM, I would work with him as I do with all of the facilities staff from ABM, usually on a daily basis, just to discuss items of repair that need to be done on a daily basis.
Um, Do you know whether Mr. Buford or not was involved with some of the issues as it related to the supply of the toilet paper and or paper products in terms of ordering prior to Nextdoor Foundation taking it over?
I cannot speak to that specifically. I don't know at that time if I was aware who was ordering the paper products from ABM. I know how it gets ordered now, but I don't want to speculate that that's how it was ordered in the past.
In terms of the snow removal, do you know whether Mr. Buford was involved in the delivery of that service?
I don't believe that he was, other than maybe to coordinate snow plows onto the property.
Yeah, so I don't mean to say that he himself picked up a snow shovel or plowed the property himself, but do you know whether or not he was involved with the coordination of the snow plowing and all of that?
I believe, yes, then I believe then he was, ABM did the snow plowing. So, but they also had the snow plowing crew had access to our facilities. So I don't know how much coordination was done between Will Buford and the snowplow team at ABM.
Um, did you ever become aware in your duties and responsibilities of a internal investigation involving an Akiana Abdallah, an employee of Nextdoor Foundation?
I was not aware of that while it was occurring. in my role as executive assistant, if I was taking minutes for committees and board meetings, I was aware after the fact that a court case had taken place, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay. You were not aware of a Miss Moore as a part of that litigation?
I know who she is. I don't know any specifics about the litigation.
And at no time did you and Mr. Smith have to have a conversation about that litigation?
No, never.
Were you ever had discussions with Mr. Smith regarding Mr. Buford's termination?
No discussions about his termination. The only conversation I recall is, I believe, after the fact, where I asked to make sure that the keys were returned to Nextdoor, the keys that Mr. Buford had.
But no discussions or scheduling or strategy meetings
No.
involving Mr. Buford whatsoever?
No,
Are you aware of any one of your colleagues that may have had such a conversation with Mr. Smith?
I am not aware of any conversation.
And since the renegotiation of the contract has been had between the two companies, has the issues associated with the cost of maintaining this contract subsided?
We have not had no, we have not had discussions about the cost of the contract since it's been renegotiated.
More questions here, and I'll really let you go. Are you familiar with a Valerie Serrano?
Yes.
And how are you acquainted with Miss Serrano?
I worked with Val Serrano when she was employed by ABM. When we had negotiated the 6-month contract extension in January of 2020, Nextdoor agreed to take on the paper products and cleaning chemicals. That was an additional expense for Nextdoor. So Corey offered Val Serrano as an interim 20-hour-a-week project manager to help offset those costs. I had been looking to hire somebody on the Nextdoor side to be a maintenance and facilities coordinator and wasn't having much luck. So Val was able to fill that project manager role during that 6-month interim period.
And is that something that you and Mr. Smith negotiated? And maybe negotiated is not the right word, or discussed as a part of a temporary solution until you figured out the terms and arrangements of your 3-year contract?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. That's all the questions I have for now.
You're welcome.
All right. Do you have any cross, Mr. Sultan?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Ms. Porter. My name is William Sultan, and I represent Willie Buford in this case. What did you strike that? When Willie Buford worked at Nextdoor Foundation under the ABM contract, he was not a project manager, true?
True. That's correct.
You were involved with sort of renegotiating the contract with ABM in January of 2020 and after, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
Correct.
so am I correct that there are two contracts, this 6-month extension and then a larger contract, right?
Yes, a 3-year contract that we entered into in July of 2020.
And in reviewing Nextdoor Foundation's tax returns, it indicates that ABM was the single largest vendor in terms of dollars and cents that Nextdoor paid. Is that correct?
I will believe you if you say that. I don't know every vendor we have. Yeah.
Sure. Let me just ask you, are you aware of any vendor that Nextdoor pays more than ABM?
I'm not aware of that.
And so, given I mean, you do agree that the contract with ABM is a large contract, correct?
Objection,
It's
Your
a-
Honor, as to relevance. I mean, I allowed some lead with regarding this question, but I'm not sure if that has any relevance to do with his retaliation claim.
Okay, Mr. Sultan?
Your Honor, I'm just trying to establish the importance in terms of negotiating and the importance of this contract to Nextdoor as an institution.
I'm still not sure why that has any relevance to do with your retaliation claim.
I'm going to allow just a little few more questions, but better cut it off soon. Go ahead.
Ms. Porter, you agree that Nextdoor's contract with ABM is a large contract?
I would say it's a large contract. I'll just clarify by saying I don't have access to every budget line at Nextdoor, just my own service areas.
All right. In January, when you renegotiated the contract in January 2020, did Nextdoor agree that the number of ABM employees working at Nextdoor would be fewer?
That was not part of the interim contract.
Let's talk about the contract that came after the interim 6-month contract. In that contract, did Nextdoor agree that the number of ABM employees would be fewer?
In any of the contracts that we've had with ABM, we've never listed a number of employees. It's more of the nature of the work that would need to be done. And that would be Corey Smith's amount of employees he thinks he needs to employ in order to get the work done. We did not put that in any of our contracts.
In negotiating both the 6-month extension and the larger contract after 6 months, did you expect the number of ABM employees to be fewer?
I have no expectation about the number of staff that ABM employs to get the job done. I expect them to get the job done.
Let me ask you about Mr. Buford's specific role. You understood that Mr. Buford was the top supervisor for ABM employees, correct?
I knew Will Buford as a full-time ABM employee. I didn't know he had a specific title. That would be the title that you said. I had not heard that.
Did you know that Mr. Buford supervised the ABM crew at Nextdoor?
Yes.
When you entered into the 6-month extension, did Nextdoor Foundation commit to eliminating that supervisory role?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant.
It certainly
Go
is
ahead, I'll
relevant.
allow. Go ahead. I'm allowing. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. When you negotiated the 6-month contract extension, did Nextdoor Foundation agree to eliminate Mr. Buford's role as a supervisor?
Nextdoor, in any contract, including the contract extension, we didn't discuss the number of ABM employees it would take to get the job done. So we did not discuss eliminating any positions.
Sure, but in negotiating the contract with ABM,
Objection, asked and answered.
no, you haven't even let me finish my question.
Ask the question. Go ahead. Ask the question. I'm not saying you
In
can answer it. Just
negotiating,
ask it.
in negotiating both the 6-month extension and the larger contract, Nextdoor required that ABM have a crew supervisor, correct?
In the 3-month contract extension, July of 2020, because Nextdoor had taken on the snowplow expenses and the paper products and cleaning, that was when we decided to formalize having an on-site supervisor in that role in July of 2020 to offset the costs that Nextdoor took on to assume those other expenses.
I'm not sure that I'm understanding your testimony. Is it that in the 6-month contract negotiation, I'm sorry, are you saying that prior to July 2020, there was no on-site supervisor role?
I don't know. It wasn't specifically in the contract, and I don't know what role Will was fulfilling for ABM. Nextdoor didn't set the titles of the jobs that ABM staff performed.
Sure. When you say the contract, what contract are you referring to?
The ABM contract.
Sure, but which year are we talking about?
So if it was in, I don't know, what time period are you asking about?
Okay, let me back up. Do you agree that in the 2017 contract, Nextdoor Foundation required an on-site supervisor?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. Do you know whether in the January 2020 contract, did ABM change any of the staffing requirements in that first contract?
In the 6-month contract?
Yes, the
In
one
this-
entered in January 2020. Did it change any of the staffing?
Your
No,
Honor,
I
she's already testified that that's not a term which the parties negotiate or deal with. She's only concerned, or based on her testimony, is that the services are completed. And so he keeps asking
All
the
right,
same question.
stop. Okay. There was a difference between the 6th and the July. I don't know what you're planning to do, but she already said there was nothing like that. At least that's how I understood your testimony, correct, Ms. Porter? Nothing
Yes.
like that in the 6-month, correct?
That was just an interim contract meant to address the offsetting of the costs of the paper products and cleaning. It had nothing to do with any other aspect outside of that.
But in July, that contract that started in July of 2020, that's when Nextdoor asked for there to be an on-site supervisor.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's our answer. Let's move on, Mr. Sultan.
Your Honor, can you pull up complainant's exhibit number 1, please?
Okay, 1 second. All right, we've already marked and entered complaints exhibit 1. I will make it bigger. Okay, we are in complainants exhibit 1, ABM Nextdoor contract. And what page are you looking for?
If you could just take the witness to ERD2.
All right, do you see that, Ms. Porter?
I see a title page.
Sure. Do you recognize complainant's exhibit 1?
Yes, it looks like the contract for the original contract with Nextdoor and ABM.
All right. Your Honor, can you take the witness to ERD006?
All right, we're on that page.
Ms. Porter, if you look at the top, it says staff responsibilities. Do you see that?
Yes.
Underneath that, it says general manager. The general manager for the Nextdoor Foundation will be announced within 1 week of the contract start date. Do you see that?
I see that.
That's a requirement of the contract, true?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. First and foremost, the testimony that Ms. Porter has given is very clear, and that is she had no dealings with the contract that was signed in early of or the end of 2017. This contract, this exhibit is a contract and signed in early in 2017, in which Ms. Porter was an executive assistant at the time and is unaware of the terms and conditions of what this contract is. So I would object for her to be able to testify to this particular document.
Okay, so in the future, maybe be a little bit more careful about what you're saying, since the witness is here, can hear you, and is a friendly witness to you, Mr. Baldwin. But in any case, this is exactly what she testified to. I don't know why we're, hammering away. You can show me that that's what the contract says, but it was her understanding, at least to the extent she knew anything about it, that she didn't know. So I'm not sure where you're going with this, but she said she didn't negotiate this contract.
Ms. Porter, did you review Exhibit 1 before you negotiated the contract extension?
Yes.
And Exhibit 1 shows that ABM committed to having a general manager and an on-site supervisor, correct?
I know that that was listed in the original contract. Yes, that was listed in the original contract.
And if you look at ERD 6, it says the on-site supervisor is also responsible for building security, logging in and out all key cards. Do you see that?
Trying to see if I can see about the key cards, but
Is there a part of this? Which paragraph is this, Mr.?
yeah, I see it now. I see it now.
Your Honor, if we could show the witness
Well,
respondent's exhibit.
Did you ask her a question? She was trying to answer a question, I thought.
Oh, sure. I was asking you, I asked you whether the on-site supervisor was also responsible for building security and logging in and out key cards.
That is in the contract. I read it and I reviewed it. I do not, I cannot speak to whether or not that was happening. In my understanding, Nextdoor staff employed by Nextdoor had those responsibilities and was responsible for keys and key cards from Nextdoor. So the person previously in my role was responsible for that. So I know that that's listed in the contract, but I don't know how it was playing out in reality during the first 3 years of the contract.
Sure, and just so we're clear, Ms. Porter, you took Exhibit 1 into consideration in negotiating the 6-month contract extension, right?
Objection, that's not what was testified to, taking facts not in evidence.
She's cross. He can ask a pointed question, and she can tell us if it's not correct. Would you say that's an accurate statement or not, Ms.
I
Porter?
would say it's not. During the 6-month contract extension, we were merely dealing with the issue of cleaning supplies, and it was really in order to have a 6-month extension so we could fully review this contract before we entered into another 3-year contract. So this contract was not discussed for the contract extension. It was not part of that. All the different points of this contract.
I think I understand, Ms. Porter, but let me ask you, am I correct that the 6-month contract extension was to keep and maintain all of the terms and conditions in the original contract, save for the paper products and snow plowing?
The only thing we were discussed were paper products and snow plowing at the time of the 6-month extension.
Sure, and I'm going to use a different word. The word I'm going to use is modify. Was the 6-month contract extension only modifying those 2 items?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, because modify, as counsel knows, has a legal implication, and Ms. Porter is here to testify as in her role as a director of operations, not as a legal expert on whether or not the contract has been modified or not.
Please restate.
Ms. Porter, was it Nextdoor's intent to modify any other terms and conditions in the original contract?
Again, I'm objecting to the word modify.
I don't really
I'll-
see
I'll-
that. I don't see it as a legal issue, but come on. If Miss Porter, was there any other parts of this original contract that you were looking at to change during that 6-month period, other than the snow plowing
was
and the
not
paper
at
products?
right during that time. The only thing that we were discussing was the paper products and snow plowing during that.
Was it your expectation that the rest of the contract would remain in place?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Ms. Porter, when Nextdoor Foundation entered into the July 2020 contract, did Nextdoor Foundation require both a general manager and an on-site supervisor?
No, I don't know what the difference is between those two positions in the original contract. So I don't know what they were in the original contract, so they are not in the July of 2020 contract.
Your Honor, could you show the witness respondents exhibit 7?
Okay, 1 second. Stupid thing came down. I hate that. Oh, I forgot to open up the respondents, the exhibits. 1 second, I have to do that. All right, which one did you want?
Exhibit 7, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7. Contract negotiations, it says? That's the
Yes,
one
Your
you're
Honor.
looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Right, we'll make that bigger. Oh, I'll have to mark it first. All right, I've done that now.
Thank you. If you could
Let me
take the
make it
witness
big.
to ERD 139. Ms. Porter, do you recognize respondents exhibit 7?
It looks to be the current contract with ABM.
Sure, and I'm
And
going
that's
to
fine.
caution you here, Ms. Porter, because Respondent's Exhibit 7 is unsigned, so I want you to know that.
Right, that's why I say it looks to be, it's pretty small. Let me see if I have glasses.
You want me to make it bigger? Is
If you could.
that better?
Yes, that's better, thank you.
I can make it bigger too if you need.
No, that's okay.
And if we could direct the witness to ERD 143. The top of the page is fine.
I'm just going to slowly go through this so she can see it and make sure she's.
This is a
See.
draft copy. This appears to be a draft copy.
So this isn't what it looks like when it's finally done?
It looks similar. That appears to be a draft copy.
And what makes you say it's a draft copy?
I saw up at the top a name and question mark next to it
On one of the pages?
on one of the pages. If you keep going back to the top of the document, let me see where I saw that again.
David?
Right here. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the question marks included question mark. Yeah.
Mr. Sultan?
ERD 139. I'm sorry,
Yes, I got you.
143.
Okay, so we're on page ERD 143 of this draft document.
And I just want to ask you underneath the heading where it says staffing, is the general manager section in the agreed upon July 2020 contract?
I can't speak to that. If you allow me to take a look at it, I'll take a look at my copy that's signed, but I can't speak to that. I don't have it memorized.
I will absolutely allow it.
We don't have a copy of
I
the
don't, I'm
actual
sorry, Your
agreement?
Honor, that, unless that's some exhibit that's been admitted, I don't know what he's asking for her to do.
We're just refreshing the witness's recollection. It doesn't
Yes,
have to
but
be an
anything she
exhibit.
looks at, he gets to see. So you
Right, so
don't
I-
have the real exhibit?
Mr. Baldwin, I'm sorry, ABM is a regularly represented client of Mr. Baldwin's. I'm sure he hasn't.
Well, I don't have it, and so I haven't seen it, and it hasn't been submitted a part of this record, and I object.
Well, I think you're not telling me you haven't ever seen it. You just haven't recently looked at it.
Let me rephrase so that it's very clear. I have not seen that contract. It is not something that I do in my regular duties and responsibilities. Mr. Smith is responsible for his own business contracts, and I only get involved under certain circumstances. So I have not seen it as it relates to this litigation, nor during any of the issues that he's worked with Next Door Foundation, because I have not been solicited or required to assist him in his relationship with Next Door Foundation. They seem to be doing just fine.
All right. So, nope, she's not looking at it. Go ahead. Any other questions, Mr. Sultan?
Miss Porter, and we can, I guess, close out the exhibit then, Your Honor.
All right. Go
Are
ahead.
you, Miss Porter, are you aware if there was a general manager or on-site supervisor since the July 2020 contract was signed?
I don't believe those are the titles that are being used in the
What do you
July
believe?
2020 contract.
Sure, what do you believe the titles to be?
I'd have to look at the original contract. We did want there to be a higher level staff person, a higher level maintenance technician staff person to be readily available to Nextdoor. But I don't recall, without looking at the contract, what that title was agreed upon for the final contract.
Sure, shoving the title to the side, was there a higher level supervisor in the July 2020 contract?
Yes.
And was that person's job duties and responsibilities to manage the subordinate maintenance staff?
That person's duties were to fulfill the roles of the project manager, specific duties, those liaison duties between Nextdoor that were in the interim contract to supervise daytime facilities staff, to supervise nighttime cleaning staff as well. It was a higher level position.
Did you ever have any conversations about Mr. Buford's termination?
I did not.
Did you have any conversations about Ms. Serrano's termination?
I have no information on that. No conversations on that.
Did ABM fulfill its obligation to have that higher level supervisor after Ms. Serrano's termination?
I don't know when she was terminated, so I have no information on that. Since we entered the July 2020 contract, we've had that higher level staff person fulfilling those duties on a daily basis.
When you say high level staff person, is that from Nextdoor or ABM?
That's an ABM staff person.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Well, who is the higher level staff person? Was it Ms. Serrano or somebody else?
It was someone else, a new employee to
A new
Nextdoor. I
employee?
don't know if he's a new to ABM, but yeah.
Do you know his name?
Tyrone Nelson.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any redirect, Mr. Baldwin?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
And
Thank
I
you
would
very-
apologize to Ms. Porter. My objections, maybe my tone was wrong, but I do know she's a friendly witness to me, and I did not intend to be insulting in any way.
No insult was taken.
I appreciate your time, Ms. Porter, and coming here willingly to discuss this matter. So appreciate it and have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Porter.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I please run to the restroom real quick?
Sure. Why don't we take I definitely usually take a break before we start the next witness at this point, especially after lunch. So let's take a 10-minute break and come back about 1:15. Yeah, or 2:15. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.